congratulate you because one of the reasons why I reached out to you is because I recently watched your short film that came out on YouTube around Mother's Day. And Sabtike is, I believe, the Hindi title of it. It's Everything is Fine, is how it's on YouTube. And I have to tell you that watching it, although I'm extremely close to my mother, I don't think my mother has ever had a conversation with me in relation to, how she really feels about the relationship that she has with my father. And I mean, I take for granted that the two of them seem to get along, right? What made you explore that topic? What made you explore, it's almost like the reverse, where we typically see the daughter or the son come out to the parents, say there's an issue or there's a problem, there's a breakdown in the relationship. This time around, of course, it's the opposite. And we never really see that. We never really think about the mother's feelings vis-a-vis their partner. So what made you explore that topic?
I think a little bit of it was this, that it's something that people don't really notice in everyday lives. And I guess I was a very sensitive kid, and I used to like listen more than I used to talk. So I saw this sort of discontent in a lot of my aunts and even like older cousins. So I think it had been simmering for a long time before I even entered filmmaking. And then there was like a trigger to kind of think about making it into a film, and then like opportunities and timing kind of fell into place, and it turned into what it is. The seed of it is, like you said, it is everywhere. It is extremely prevalent, and I'm almost surprised at how much it cuts across ages, backgrounds, cultures, countries, languages. Because like I've traveled with the film for 2 years to different festivals, and people from filmmakers and audiences alike from all over the world have come up to me and said that they recognize their moms in this. So that's like the genesis of why I did this, because it's super common and yet invisible.
I want to also talk about Chhuri as well, because those are sort of the two films that I've watched. Chhuri I've actually watched a few times, and it's not the first time. When I watched it, it was the first time it actually came out, so a few years ago. And I remember thinking to myself, this is a great short film. And it was interesting at the time of Chhuri, and I noticed that there were not a lot of short films, or at least there wasn't a lot of attention given to short films. That has sort of broken out a little bit, and short films seem to be, and I wouldn't say the flavor of the month or the flavor of the year. In fact, what I find is short films are able to provide a narrative that's usually very thought-provoking, and it leaves you sort of hungry for more, but at the same time you're satiated. You say, okay, I don't think I want more. From my perspective, that is the genesis of a good short film. You're hungry for more, at the same time you're satisfied with the way things end in the film. So going back to the Chhuri days, and going back a few years ago when short films weren't really the norm, and they're still really not the norm, but they're a little bit more normalized now. What was your thought process going in saying, I want to do short films? Because I understand that you have a writing background, you write your scripts, you direct your scripts. What was that seed that was planted? How did that project come about?
I guess watching or like distributing short films has become more mainstream now. But I think filmmakers have always been making short films. Like there are short films that Nolan, Scorsese, Satyajit Ray, they have so many short films. It's just that they don't necessarily reach audiences like they do now. They usually are limited to festivals or film school audiences, or like very like niche audiences. So it was just something that was obviously a part of my film school training. We had to make practically a film every semester, or definitely at least every year. So by the time I graduated, I had like 3 short films, and Everything is Fine was my thesis film. So it was just something that we were doing without thinking that much about it, that when you're a storyteller, you are a storyteller. I've written a series of books in this lockdown. So it's not like I don't particularly find myself limited by medium. And I've written series and I've written features, and I think it's just easier to get short films out there and made very quickly. Like there are fewer moving parts when it comes to short films. The money is lesser, the time required from actors and other people is lesser. So it's less resistance that you have to face to get it made and get it released. But it's something that's very common and normal. Like if you even look at like FTII, there are so many amazing short films that were made. Like you have to make a diploma film before you graduate, and some of them are just stunning. So it's a very normal part of being a filmmaker. It's a very exciting time though, to have the platform of like online distribution as well as like you know TV. Like you have Shorts TV now in India as well. So it's a really cool platform that the supply was always there, the creation was always there, and now you have like ways to get it to the audiences faster. And obviously, like you said, they are consuming it very freely, and people love the length, the pointedness of it. There's no drag, and content in general, I guess, is becoming tighter. I wouldn't say shorter, but it's definitely becoming tighter, and brevity is, finding its sweet spot finally. So it's kind of fun.
I want to talk about storytelling. You talked about being a storyteller and being able to use different mediums to tell your story. One of the things I find very interesting in short films is you have very little time to develop character in terms of a character graph, character development. You have sort of the first minute, 2 minutes to show that there's a problem that exists, right? Whereas in a feature film or in a series, that character development happens over time. When you are a storyteller and you are working through different mediums, do you have a different technique in terms of how you think about a character, how you develop your characters?
I don't think I have a different, like, even if I'm only showing 15 minutes of my character's life on screen, in my head, I know what that person's been through for many years. So what ends up on screen is different in a film, in a short film, in a series. And a series is different because you have literally years to develop it. You grow as a writer, as a human being. So your character grows with you. And so that's a different way of looking at a character, and which is what we see. Like there are so many characters who start out in one place and then end up completely different 3 years later, which is kind of the fun of it. Otherwise it's like you're like stuck in purgatory. Like you start out and you end out exactly where you were every year, which is not fun. But like short films, even though, like I said, it's only X amount of time on screen, but you have, as a storyteller, you will have where this person started out from, what were their dreams and hopes when they were younger, how did they end up here, and like you catch them in this moment of like realization and action, but the world around it still exists, and you can, when it's there, you can feel it in the writing, you can feel it in what they're wearing, how they react. You might not see it in action and dialogue, but like the mood of it resonates on screen in different subtle ways. That's like how I approach characterization, whether it's a short or a book or feature. That's the fun of it, I guess. A series and a film also gives you maybe more time to develop peripheral characters, like tertiary characters. So that, I think, is a difference that is there in short films, at least in my experience, where it's not where you have time to develop other characters more. Like if I look at Chhuri, it is Meera's story, but I feel like I was still very conscious of showing what Kiara's story was like where is she coming from, and how much skin does she have in this game. So you can still do that with all the other characters, and bring out, in this context, you can bring out their character and their mindset and things a little. But I guess like a feature and a series gives you the opportunity to go into the world a lot more. The families, the not supporting characters, but you know what I mean, like the world around everybody.
And speaking of characters and character development, one of the things that I really found admirable in the work that you're doing, specifically the female characters that are portrayed in your projects, I find that they're resilient in quite a subtle way. They're not loud, they're not rambunctious, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Uh, you know, it sort of depends on the story and the way you're telling the story. But what I found interesting, even in Everything is Fine, in Chhuri, they're not out and out, yes, they are sort of victims of their situation, but they never come across as requiring a lot of sympathy, garnering a lot of sympathy. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy, and I want to touch on that because you feel very empathetic, but you don't think of them as sympathetic characters. So is that purposeful on your end when you're writing the characters? Is it something that has just come naturally to you? Is it part of your personality perhaps that comes to light when you're writing? Or you've never thought about it before?
I guess all writing is a reflection of the writer, especially when it's honest and when it's your story, when it's something you've created from scratch. And I guess like that is very true. Like you said, it is a part of my personality. I am not like loud, and I mean, I can be when I'm having fun, but in terms of like handling life and changes and challenges, I handle them more in an introspective way. And I guess like subconsciously, I absolutely agree. Like it's all about empathy, and sympathy actually is a very counterproductive emotion. So I don't even like go into that space subconsciously. But empathy is a huge part of anything I write as well as my life. Like I feel like people need to be more empathetic again. So, and yeah, your writing, you know, especially when it's your baby from start to finish, is a big reflection on who you are, the world as you see it, or maybe would like to see it. So I guess that's why it's like nobody really screams and shouts in my film, because I've not really seen that in real life. I've seen it, and I think in a feature that would be a bit part of it, because we do get loud and we do fight and it gets crazy and emotions get out of control. But somehow like, yeah, I'm a little more introspective when it comes to navigating changes and challenges. So I as far as I can remember, I don't think I lose it easily. So maybe that's why my characters are like that.
Interesting. Mansi, I want to end off with asking you, I mean, your projects have been very diverse, as you've said, series, short films, No Filter Neha. I mean, you name it, you sort of dabbled in all of them. And you've done so very well, which doesn't necessarily always happen. You know, sometimes people who do short films don't necessarily succeed with the series because, as you said, you know, series, you sort of grow the character, the storyline develops, there's a different timeline that you're working with, time frame that you're working with. When you think about the next few years, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing? Or is it a go with the flow type of thing?
I think it's more of a go with the flow kind of a thing. I think my intention is pretty solid. I know the kind of work I want to put out there and why. I don't really have anybody in my family who was ever in the media or films. So I didn't get into it because I had to. Like, it wasn't like, okay, this is what my family does, so this is the natural course of events for me. I got into it because there was something very powerful and cathartic about the films I grew up on, and there was something very soulful about the films that I watched growing up. And some, a lot of them were really funny, and they took on really difficult subjects with levity and humor without being preachy. And I would like to see more of that again, where it's not heavy-handed, where it's not like shaming or bashing people about their lives. And that's the kind of writing I do. That's the kind of films series, shorts, books I want to put out there. That's even like, I guess, my social media is like, that's what I want to put out there. That's what I want to receive back as well. So I don't know where the industry is headed, and I'm okay with that. I like change. I think there should be constant change and growth. I think I welcome it quite easily. And I do love the power of online distribution, I guess, because it evens out the playing field a lot. You don't necessarily need to, you know, be in touch with the 5 or 6 people who are basically running the film business end of it, though I've been very lucky to have my stories and scripts reach to those people and get them moving. But I love seeing the power of series and films being made by all sorts of different points of view, from like all over the country. There are so many different cultures and stories that you can access online, which you probably could not in theaters. So I like this transition. I like the power of it. I wouldn't mind seeing more of it, though, you know, obviously as a filmmaker, you do love the theater. You love that experience of being in an audience which is watching your stuff as you are watching it and seeing them laugh, seeing your jokes land, seeing the silence when it needs to be silent. So there's a different high to that for sure. But I think there's merit to both things, and I enjoy the changes and transitions happening in the industry, as well as the kind of stuff we are looking to consume now. Like the audience has access to, if they don't like what they're seeing right now from XYZ filmmaker, they have the option with one click to go to HBO or Netflix or whatever they want. So you really have to, you know, be on your toes, and I kind of love that about life in general.
Fantastic. I think you as a filmmaker also keep us on our toes, so that's fantastic. Mansi, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and we will definitely be in touch.
All right, have a good sleep. I know it's super late for you.